Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, we're going to dive a bit deeper into the opening night performances of both Terrence Shannon Jr. and Jaden McDaniels. Why Terrence Shannon could be a higher variance version of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, good and bad, but mostly good. And also how awesome Jaden McDaniels was. Plus, we'll talk the Conley-Gobert pairing. It's all coming next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy weekend and happy Timberwolves game day. The Wolves take on the Lakers tonight. The first Amazon Prime game of the NBA season. We'll talk about that game. We'll preview it toward the end of the show today. But first, I want to get into some more kind of, 48 hours later, 36 hours later, whatever, from opening night, the Timberwolves win over Portland. And I want to talk about specifically Jaden McDaniels and Terrence Shannon Jr., I think are maybe the two most notable performances. Julius Randle was great. Obviously, Ant was awesome. Talked a lot about Ant on yesterday's show. Julius Randle was one of the best versions of himself. But I think Jaden's excellence is going to be huge for this team this year. And I'll talk a little bit more about why that is and what I mean by that here in a minute. And then also Terrence Shannon Jr., who ostensibly has what used to be the Nickeil Alexander-Walker role. What's so tantalizing about what he did on opening night, and also some of the kind of the potential potholes along the way that we got to look out for when it comes to TJ Shannon, at least early this season, what we've seen, obviously very early through one game, but like early on in his NBA rotation career, what we could look out for. And then we'll get into some Conley Gobert stuff. We'll talk about that pairing and how vital that's going to be for Minnesota in the minutes that Mike Conley does play off the bench for the Timberwolves this year. So a lot to get to today. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, you can listen anywhere. You can watch on YouTube. You can also download the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. You can watch there as well. All right. So let's start with TJ Shannon. Because I think the case of Shannon is super intriguing. And if you've listened to any number of shows over the last few weeks, I've talked about how TJ Shannon, I think, has more offensive upside this year than Nickeil Alexander-Walker does. Nickeil was a known quantity over the last two seasons for Chris Finch and the Timberwolves. They knew he was going to be an above-average catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. He's going to be a really good point-of-attack defender, an outstanding team defender, and you could trust him to guard the ball. He wasn't going to give you a 20-point scoring night on the offensive end. TJ Shannon could do that for you. TJ Shannon's an outstanding is maybe strong. TJ Shannon's a very talented offensive player and is more adept at pushing in transition and making life miserable for the opponent in the open floor than Nickeil. And it's easy to see how TJ Shannon could easily average double-digit points this year. Like, right now, I mean, he scored 10 points in game one, only played 25 minutes, did it on 7 shots, knocked down a pair of threes, didn't even get to the line at all, which is kind of crazy given how much he's trying to dunk on guys and lay in it, run guys over in the paint. And that is, by the way, something he's going to have to look out for is guys stepping in to take charges against him because of the breakneck speed with which he plays. And everyone knows the book on him is he's trying to get to the cup every single time. So he's going to have to continue to improve the playmaking piece, which I'll talk about in a second, and is very, very impressive already. But the upside of Terrence Shannon is real. And why I would term him as a higher variance version of the Nickeil Alexander-Walker role is because defensively, I would say defensively is where I would have the most concern. Because TJ Shannon isn't a plus defensive player right now, whereas Nickeil Alexander-Walker was, I don't know, a top 15 perimeter defender in the NBA, if not top 10 on the perimeter. I know he didn't make an all defensive team, but obviously those teams have bigs on them as well. Nickeil's a fantastic point of attack defender. Minnesota's going to count on Terrence Shannon to be able to guard the point of attack for a couple of reasons. One, that was a big piece of Nickeil's role, and he is filling that role. Two, we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to Jaden here in a minute, but Jaden McDaniels, the Wolves want to play him off the ball more this season, and we saw a little bit of that in the Portland game. I think we'll probably see more of it depending on the opponent and as the season goes on. And actually, Portland wasn't a bad team to do this against a Scoot Henderson-less Portland team, obviously a Dame-less Portland team without like a super dynamic. Shaedon Sharpe looked good, didn't make a lot of shots, but Portland didn't have like high volume scoring, high usage guards that were going to, go off on you. But Jaden, the Wolves would like to play him off the ball more and more of a free safety type role where he can roam side to side, get some help side blocks, steal cross court passes, just kind of hunt the basketball and be impactful in that way and get some secondary rim protection, especially when Rudy Gobert's off the floor, because that's when you need the off ball, the weak side help in terms of rim protection. They would love to do more of that with Jaden McDaniels, but that's incumbent upon really Terrence Shannon, like obviously Jalen Clark when he plays, but he's going to play relatively limited minutes, I think, at least until they don't have any choice. And, Anthony Edwards otherwise is guarding the point of attack a lot. But what's your other option? It's Jalen, it's Ant, or it's Terrence Shannon Jr. That's kind of it. And so it would behoove the Wolves for it would behoove TJ Shannon to be really, really good at the point of attack to allow Jaden to then play that free safety role and take some pressure off of Shannon being good at the point of attack, being a plus point of attack defender would take a lot of pressure off the Timberwolves defense, period, because then it lets McDaniels do some of the other stuff, which then takes pressure off of Rudy Gobert, who lifts so much on the defensive end of the floor. And TJ Shannon has all the tools to be a plus defender. He's got obviously the size, he's got an NBA body, he's strong, he's athletic. It's just going to be technique and the footwork and technique really defensively. I think the effort is mostly there. His defense, I thought, got a little bit of a bad rap, maybe an unfair rap coming out of Illinois because he was being asked to do so much offensively that there wasn't much gas in the tank left for him on the defensive end. He was the offense for that Illinois team. And I thought he was a better defender going back and watching some of the clips of him at Texas Tech prior to transferring to Illinois when he was, had more energy to expend on the defensive end of the floor. And Minnesota needs him to bring energy on both ends. And, 25 plus or minus minutes a game, I don't think it's too much to ask for him to be a legit 3-and-D guy, but more than the 3 on the offensive end of the floor. And that's where some of this variance comes in. Like Nickeil was always going to be a rock solid defender. And for the most part, he was a very good, a plus defender at the point of attack. TJ Shannon, that's where some of the question mark comes in. I think he could get there, but can that consistency increase? On the offensive end, he's got more tools in the toolbox, I think, than Nickeil Alexander-Walker. The thing is, he's not naturally, like sitting here right now, he's not as good of a catch and shoot 3-point guy as Nickeil. Can he do more in the open floor? Yes. Can he actually be a better passer and creator for others? I think yes. In that kind of the point guard and name backup point guard role where there's nobody else initiating offense, so it's going to be TJ Shannon. We saw him do this. I think he had a 9-assist game in Summer League. We saw it a little bit in preseason, and now he had 5 assists in 25 minutes. I think only 2 turnovers in opening night against Portland. The playmaking piece, I think, is very quickly could be better than Nickeil Alexander-Walker. The pushing and transition and scoring for himself and creating for others could be very quickly better than Nickeil Alexander-Walker. The question is, will he make threes at a high enough clip? And then the stray voltage is a term I think we have to reserve for Karl-Anthony Towns, and it's not the right term here, but I'll say the haywire possessions for TJ Shannon. He had a couple of them in this game where like it was just, all right, I'm going for this. And it's like, wait a minute, get a 2 for or hold for the last shot here, or take a little more time off the clock toward the end of the game. The missed kind of crazy reverse layup that Rudy ended up with the dunk off the offensive rebound that put Minnesota up 2 possessions down the stretch. That could have been a disaster, right? Like picking his spots is something that is going to take a minute, I think, for Shannon to understand. And that's where some of this variance comes in. Some nights are going to look better than Nickeil. Other nights are going to look worse. And hopefully it evens out to about what Nickeil Alexander-Walker gave you production-wise. But it's very easy to see how the defense on a night-to-night basis may be a little worse. The offense may be a little better. But if it all clicks in the right way, I think the ceiling for Shannon as a rotation piece for Minnesota is higher than what it was for Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And that's going to be an important piece of Minnesota, ending up on the over of the 49.5 win total over at FanDuel that I took the over on. That's how you win 50-plus games, is if your eighth guy is better than your eighth guy from last year. And I think that's on the table as a possibility. The other thing, setting aside an Anthony Edwards kind of supernova season, which if Wednesday night's game is any indication, maybe it happens. But Jaden McDaniels is the other guy that I think we got to look out for a big leap from. And we saw a really strong performance from him in the opener against Portland. We'll break down Jaden's performance here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Robinhood. Your ambition just met its match with Robinhood. You play for the win, not just on game day, every day, locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by our friends at DoorDash. The NBA season is already heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights of your fantasy team or just your favorite player or maybe your favorite team, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they are celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 or more points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the very next day, and you are automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff that you'll actually want. I love that it's not just food. You get everything from snacks and drinks to headphones, ice, even socks, all delivered. DoorDash has you covered for late-night highlights, last-minute watch parties, and double OT fuel-ups. So next time someone goes off for 50, perhaps it'll be Ant, perhaps it'll be soon. Use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only, 50% off up to $10 the day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. All right, so perhaps the most pivotal player this side of Anthony Edwards for the Timberwolves this year, and you could make it. You go on that list, make an argument. We just talked about TJ Shannon; he's obviously important. Mike Conley not falling off a cliff would be super important. Rudy Gobert not taking more than an eighth of a step, not becoming more than an eighth of a step slower this year is important. All these things are important, but I think Jaden McDaniels is the single most important player this side of Ant going supernova, which there's only so much to say about that. We've already kind of talked in the past about like how that could happen, what could happen to see that come to fruition for Ant. And we'll obviously, talk about it a lot here moving forward. If Ant plays like he did Wednesday, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about how just how dominant Ant is. But the other player that I think is vital to Minnesota winning 50-plus games, being a top 2 or 3 seed in the Western Conference is Jaden McDaniels. And it's important to note just how good Jaden McDaniels was last year. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because we did a couple of shows on Jaden McDaniels in the offseason. Like, he was awesome last year. I know 2 years ago was the year he was all defensive second team, and it's really kind of a travesty that he wasn't all defensive, at least second team last year. He should have been. But last season is when we saw the offense really come to the party for Jaden McDaniels. And yes, it was a few years ago that he shot 40% on threes, the 22-23 season. He's had 2 sub 34% seasons since then. But despite that last season, everything else trended in the right direction. The rebound rate was way up. The offensive rebound rate was the most important thing. The free throw rate was up. The assist rate was up. The steal rate was up. The block rate was up. The turnover rate was down, all while the usage rate was still up. Across the board, it was a better season for Jaden McDaniels. And we saw more of the same on Wednesday in the opener against Portland. The biggest thing to me was how decisive he was with the basketball in his hands. And we saw, I think it started in the playoffs 2 years ago. The sweep over the Phoenix Suns, the 7-game series win over Denver, and then ultimately losing in 5 in the conference finals to Dallas 2 years ago. I think that's when we saw this growth from Jaden McDaniels. And I know I've said this before, but I always go back to the Phoenix series. The Timberwolves clearly said, hey, look, guys, Phoenix is playing a small lineup. Kevin Durant's playing center. These guys don't want to rebound. They don't want to have Yusuf Nurkic on the floor. They also give up a lot of corner threes. They're not going to be with you in the corner. Jaden, corner crash. Every time a shot goes up, corner crash, corner crash, corner crash. And he averaged like over 2 offensive rebounds a game in that series, which is a really high number. And I think something clicked with him. And he was like, all right, this is a way for me to get cheap buckets. And then this is my theory, that then builds into some of the confidence, and the coaching staff was in his ear about being more aggressive and more decisive. And we've seen that happen. I mean, last year was a career low 3-point attempt rate for Jaden McDaniels, which is kind of crazy given how many threes the Wolves shot, how many threes Ant shot, the way the league is trending overall. But I think it's a good thing for Jaden McDaniels. An aggressive Jaden putting the ball on the floor and trying to get into the paint is a good Jaden. We know he can still knock down open threes. He was 3 of 4 in the opener. For his career, he's 35%. He's a little below league average for his career. But I think there's more there. I think he can be a better catch and shoot guys. And teams, frankly, will dare him to shoot threes, which is why him putting the ball on the floor and getting into the paint is an important skill set and, tool in his tool bag. And we saw that again on opening night. Jaden McDaniels being aggressive offensively opens up a lot of other things. And it was really, really nice to see that from him. Again, his line from opening night, 18 points on 12 shots, 6 of 12 shooting, 3 of 4 on threes, got to the line 4 times and made 3 of them, 5 boards. Weirdly, after I just talked up the offensive rebounding, he didn't have any offensive rebounds, but he had 5 defensive boards, which in 29 minutes, a little bit of foul trouble in the third quarter is a really good thing. 2 assists for Jaden. He did have 3 turnovers. But again, turnovers, if they're mistakes of aggression that are within reason, I realize I'm adding a lot of qualifiers here. That's a good thing, though. That's the type of Jaden McDaniels the Timberwolves need. And I was dubious just a couple of years ago about him as a true third. At the time, I thought it could even end up being a second option if Cat was traded for something else. But in this case, a third option, the offense. Like, if Jaden could come out, he averaged 12 a game last year. I think it's entirely on the table that this becomes 14, 15, maybe 16 points a game this year. I think 15 is probably a realistic target. He's never averaged more than 12.2 a game. But at least 15 points a game, if he can get that 3-point percentage up to the 34, 35% range. But the overall attempt rate is a little lower because he's getting into the paint more often. The free throw rate is ticking upward. That is a good Jaden McDaniels. And then on the other end of the floor, he had 4 stocks in this game, 3 blocks and a steal. Saw a little bit more of Jaden McDaniels roaming off the ball, got into a little bit of foul trouble in the third quarter. But if Minnesota's able to use him more like a free safety, it's going to go a long way. I talked about this in the first segment. It will allow, if Jalen Clark can be great at the point of attack, and he is when he's on the floor, if Terrence Shannon Jr. can grow into a plus defender at the point of attack, that will allow Minnesota to use Jaden McDaniels as a free safety, really, as somebody who can just be in the midst of the defense, flying back and forth, using his length, athleticism, anticipation to disrupt opposing offenses, and then get out and transition and just dunk on guys with his length and athleticism. That is best case scenario. And he was great on both ends in this game. It was nearly a perfect, relatively quiet 18-5 and 5. Yeah, 18-5 and 5 Jaden game with 4 stocks, 18-5 and 2 with 4 stocks. That's outstanding. That's what the Timberwolves need from Jaden McDaniels on a nightly basis. And I think we're trending in that direction. And we have been now for over a calendar year. And that's a really positive thing for the Timberwolves. I want to talk about Conley and Gobert. Let's go ahead and jump right into that and kind of introduce what I want to touch on. So Mike Conley obviously was announced during the day on Wednesday that Conley would come off the bench. And he only did that, I think, once in his first couple years in Minnesota, coming back from an injury at one point. And DiVincenzo was inserted into the starting lineup. I don't want to focus too much on the DiVincenzo piece right now. He didn't have a good game. The matchup, he isn't a point guard, and the way Portland guards made things really difficult for DiVincenzo. He wasn't alone either, by the way. Conley also struggled with pressure and struggled with the pressure. Lots of lazy passes. It wasn't just DiVincenzo, but he turned it over 6 times. Conley not being in the starting lineup is interesting because Minnesota tried so hard over the last couple of years to play him with Rudy Gobert as much as possible. Last season, Mike Conley played 2,636 possessions with Rudy Gobert. Okay, so we'll round it down to, we'll round it down to 2,600. So 2,600 plus possessions with Rudy Gobert. He only played 903 possessions without him. So he played nearly 3 times as many possessions with Rudy Gobert as he did without him. Without Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley lineups so Conley, no Gobert. Only 900 or so of those possessions. They were 50th percentile on defense, 59th percentile league-wide on offense, and that netted out to a 57th percentile unit, a plus 0.5. So not a barn-burning unit. With Rudy Gobert, Conley plus Gobert was a 94th percentile defensive unit. They went from 50th to 94th, and overall from 50th to 89th percentile overall. And by the way, a 72nd percentile offense. So Mike without Rudy is not a good proposition for Minnesota. There's a lot of reasons for that. One, they lift each other offensively. There's a comfort level there. They have a good chemistry in pick and roll. I think we saw less Mike to Rudy lobs over the first couple of years in Minnesota than maybe we expected, but they're also older than they were when they were together in Utah. All that to say, the offensive chemistry is there. The bigger lift is on the defensive end, though, because Gobert covers for some of Conley's issues. They have obviously good chemistry defensively. They talk well defensively. You know, are we switching? Are you hedging? Are you playing at the level? Like, what are we doing here? They talk and work together well. But Gobert can help cover for some of the deficiencies that are becoming more prominent as Conley ages. And I think that stands out to me as well. I want to talk a little bit more about this pairing and how it could be kind of still be, executed as a pairing, even if Conley's not in the starting lineup. What Chris Finch might be thinking about that. We'll do all that here next. And then we'll move on to Wolves-Lakers preview as we close out the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Rougiette. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress, I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rougiette makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNBA so they know that we sent you. Rougiette. Stop making excuses and start making moves. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is into its 8th week, believe it or not, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Week 8 of the NFL, the Vikings already unfortunately lost on Thursday night, and it was not close. You look ahead to Sunday, there's some fun games. Packers at Steelers is your Sunday night game. Green Bay is favored by 3 on the road against Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. Rodgers is saying it's not a revenge game, but I tend to think he does think it's some sort of a revenge game. I don't mind Steelers +3. I think it's probably a close game and could go either way, so you might as well take the points if you are on the fence on that one. Cowboys at Broncos. Denver's -3.5. I kind of like Cowboys +3.5 on the road there. So I'd take the road dog and the home dog, apparently, in those two games on Sunday. You could also live bet the games. You could same game parlay it. Whether you're a casual fan and love diving into the stats or you want to do any of the above options, FanDuel will make the game day experience so much better for you. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, so we established that Conley last year played nearly 3 times as many possessions with Rudy Gobert as he did without them, and they went from a 50th percentile without Conley and Gobert together to 94th percentile together defensively, offensively from 57th to 89th, overall 57th to 89th percentile. They need each other. Well, Gobert doesn't need Conley as much as Conley needs Gobert. But there is, if Mike Conley is going to be a functional player for Minnesota in the rotation, and I still believe he can be, he's still a very good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. But everything else he does is pretty limited at this point. And it wouldn't surprise me if eventually he's not really playing regularly and he's in more of a Joe Ingles type role. Eventually, if the Wolves grow to trust Rob Dillingham more, if they grow to really trust Bones Highland, which is, I think maybe the season's in a different place, unless Bones has really shown some growth over the last couple of years. I think best case scenario is Conley can hold up his end of the bargain, play 15 to 20 minutes a night, shoot 43% on threes, and hold his own defensively. The question is, how many of those minutes is he going to be able to play with Rudy Gobert? On opening night, he played only 9 possessions with Gobert, and overall they weren't positive. They were a minus 9.7 net rating, which is an extremely noisy stat through one game, but still just 9 possessions together. On the 9 possessions together during the opening night game. And so I'm curious to see how Chris Finch manages that. So 9 possessions together, Conley played 18 possessions without Gobert, and they were worse. They were a net minus 16.7. Again, painfully small sample. I get it. But those lineups had Reid at the 5. Every non-Gobert lineup for Conley had Reid at the 5, and more, like almost all of those possessions actually had TJ Shannon at the 4. And so those possessions were better than when Randle was at the 4, actually, defensively. Julius Randle's a pretty good individual one-on-one defender, but he's not great as a team defender when he's playing the 4 and being asked to navigate screens, et cetera, on the perimeter. I would actually trust a more switchable guy like a TJ Shannon or even a Jaden McDaniels I shouldn't say or even, and also Jaden McDaniels at the 4 with Conley versus a Randle Reid front court. I think the less Conley minutes with Randle and Reid, the better. So if Randle and Reid are on the floor, no Mike Conley. If Gobert's on the floor, yes, Mike Conley. If it's Reid at the 5 and Conley's on the floor, then it's got to be TJ Shannon or Jaden McDaniels. At this point, I think either one of them at the 4. And you can have a more switchable, versatile defense. You can really almost switch. Like the lineup that played the most together was Conley, among the Conley lineups, was Conley, Edwards, Jalen Clark, TJ Shannon, and Naz Reid. So basically 3 guards, 1 wing, and a small ball big, really, essentially is what Naz is, right? That's a pretty small, but yet switchable lineup where all those guys can be pretty good. Like, as far as bigs go, switchable on the perimeter, like Naz Reid's pretty good at that. Shannon, Clark, Ant, Conley, all good defenders. Conley's the weak link there. But that's how you're going to have to manage Mike Conley defensively. In the regular season, you can get away with it. In the playoffs, it's going to be a lot harder to do. Teams are going to hunt him like they did last year. But the Conley, how they manage his minutes and the staggering of minutes with Rudy Gobert and without Rudy Gobert is going to be vital for Minnesota and will be something to keep an eye on here moving forward. All right. Timberwolves matchup against Lakers Friday. LA lost on opening night by 10 to the Golden State Warriors. And, of course, no LeBron James right now. No Maxi Kleba either for a couple of weeks at least for the Lakers. Otherwise, it's a pretty similar Lakers team. Of course, Dorian Finney-Smith moved on in the offseason. Marcus Smart, Jake LaRivia come off the bench now for the Lakers. They're the newcomers. Otherwise, it's and DeAndre Ayton, of course. A pretty similar team. Similar story as the playoffs last year. Like, you go back and look at last year's playoffs, the Timberwolves, Luka averaged, he shot 46 free throws in 5 games, which is just a shade over 9 free throws a game. So they let Luka shoot 9 free throws a game. He attempted 9 threes a game. And LeBron averaged 25 points a game. And take that out of it, like, Luka was the only thing that worked for the Lakers last year. But he also committed 20 turnovers to just 29 assists. So there's a couple schools of thought here. One is you let Luka go off and don't let anyone else beat you. The other is you do the opposite. You try and shut down Luka and you just assume no one else can beat you. And I think that's probably the answer. Like, you could try and stop Luka all you want. He's going to score anyway. But at least if you can make him become, clog the passing lanes off the ball, make him try and score, but still make his life difficult. It's not quite the Jokic strategy. Luka, they're actually similar players in terms of, they're both elite passers, obviously. They're both next level. They see what's happening before it happens, that sort of a passer. I don't think the Lakers have enough shooters or enough dynamic cutters to really make teams, especially with no LeBron. Like, LeBron's obviously really neither of those things anymore, but he's a savvy cutter and a good offensive player still. I don't think they've got the horses otherwise to really be all too threatening offensively. Like Austin Reaves had a rough opener. He had a bunch of turnovers. Yeah, 5 turnovers. He did have 9 assists, but only 1 of 5 shooting from outside the arc. Luka himself was just 2 of 10 outside the arc, but he was 15 of 17 on 2-point shots, which is just nuts. That's insane. 15 of 17 on 2s for Luka Doncic in the opener, and they lost by 10. There's nobody else. Like, they have a diminutive, aging Gabe Vincent. They have DeAndre Ayton, who's not really a major offensive threat. Rui Hachimura, same thing. Off the bench, Jared Vanderbilt is not a scorer, and the other guys aren't either, and they're not going to play that much. Laravia Jackson Hayes is still there as a backup big now, and Marcus Smart. It's really the Luka show, and whatever you get from Austin Reaves, and then catch and shoot threes from the other guys. And so Luka's going to get his 35 to 40 to 45. Fine. Make the other guys work for what they're going to try and get. Or for the shots that they're going to generate. They're not going to be a great shooting team this year. They shot just 25% from the field against Golden State. The bigger issue for the Lakers, though, is they're just a bad defensive team. And Minnesota should be able to have their way offensively. It'll be completely night and day from what they saw in Portland. This Lakers team will be the opposite of Portland in terms of perimeter defense, and Minnesota should be able to hang 120 points. I mean, Golden State scored 119 in a 48-minute game. The Wolves should win they should be able to score 120. The question is, can they keep Luka from going supernova and win this game? I think Minnesota's favored on FanDuel by 2.5, or maybe it's just 2 in LA. So it's going to be a tight game more likely than not, but Minnesota should be able to score as much as they want. And as long as nobody but Luka goes off, they should be okay in this one. We will have a live postcast. Reminder, there are live postcasts with our guys, Luke Inman and Jack Borman, following each and every Timberwolves game. So they'll be live on YouTube on the Locked On Minnesota YouTube channel, the Locked On Wolves, I should say, YouTube channel. That's a change this year. Locked On Wolves YouTube channel after the game. Those guys will go live for 15 to 20 minutes with a quick hitting reaction. There won't be a post-game pod for me. I will be back on Monday, which will ultimately be a post-game pod following the Timberwolves game on Sunday, game 3 of the season. So game 2 is Friday against the Lakers. Game 3 is the home opener against the Indiana Pacers. So I'll be back on Monday with the post-game pod following Wolves Pacers on Sunday. And hopefully at that time, the Wolves will be 3-0 and looking ahead to a back-to-back and a showdown against Denver on Monday night from Target Center. That's all I got for you today here on the show. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. A reminder that for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Show. Our guy Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This show is part of that very same network, your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.